turn your phone onto silent so we avoid any interruptions. So thank you again for everyone for coming out, and welcome to Bridge the Gap of Conversation. This is a panel discussion on the important topic of mental health. This program is brought to you by Mind the Gap, The Time Is Now, which is a month-long campaign challenging the people of Gainesville, including the University of Florida, faculty, students, and staff, to take a proactive role with their mental health. Today we have the lovely Patrice Graham. She's the director of the Night Division of Scholarships, and she's going to be our moderator for the night. So I'm going to hand the floor over to her, and then we'll get the program underway. Thank you again for coming out.
Good evening, everyone. Can you all hear me okay? Okay, so I'm good without a mic. First and foremost, I want to welcome you to the very important topic, physical health, and what we eat, whether or not we exercise. And we kind of take stress as something that just occurs. As a student, as an employee, as the head of a household, we kind of just take it as it comes, and we don't think as much about it in reference to our overall well-being. But you may not know that 1 in 5 individuals suffers from some type of emotional stress that's above average, a point where they may need to take precautions for mental health. That means that all of us probably know someone, whether it be a relative or a friend, or possibly ourselves, that may be in emotional distress or have an overload of mental stress. And that's why tonight's event is very relevant. Just as we all seek and work at physical wellness, we need to seek and work at mental wellness as well. Sometimes our mental health is great, but sometimes we struggle. Sometimes we are in distress, and sometimes we even suffer. Mind the Gap events, like the one we're about to have, are urging everyone to build a bridge over the gap between good physical health and good mental health. So I'm going to take a moment to introduce our lovely panel this evening and to thank them in advance for being willing to share their stories, because so often people take this as something they need to hold to themselves and they keep it very private. And oftentimes that makes us suffer alone, not realizing just how many people are in the same position as we are. First person I will introduce to you is Valentina Carroll. Valentina is a 19-year-old psychology and pre-med major. For most of her life, she lived in Bogota, Colombia, and then she moved to Jupiter, Florida during her freshman year of high school. Today, she'll be talking about her journey with depression and how culture shock can impact the personality. Taylor Pastel is a 21-year-old senior majoring in public relations. She grew up in the suburban Philadelphia area and lived in 4 different states prior to settling in here at the University of Florida. Today, she will address her journey with agoraphobia, a rare anxiety disorder. George I knew I was going to mess it up. Proto-Papadakis. George Proto-Papadakis is a 22-year-old senior studying public relations. He grew up in Miami, Florida, and George will share with you his journey of dealing with mental health issues in the family. We have one more panelist that had a little car trouble, so she may be coming in late, so I'm going to introduce her anyway. Her name is Alexis Rodriguez. She is a 20-year-old student majoring in business administration, and she grew up in Wesley Chapel, Florida. Today she will be discussing her journey with a mood disorder. And if by any chance she doesn't make it, we will post her entire story online, so you all will still have a chance to learn from her experience. So I'm going to start with questions, but we will also leave time for you all in the audience to ask questions. So feel free to take notes and don't be shy about speaking towards the end. We want to make sure you all get the information you need. begin, can each of you tell us when you first started to realize the importance of mental health?
Hello. Mental health is, I guess, it's always been on the back burner of importance, almost because I felt like things that are stressful can be just dealt with through pushing through. So highlighting the importance of mental health was never on the forefront for myself. However, it didn't really click for me until I was probably in my 20s. Oh, I'm already in my 20s, but until I was about 20, 21 years old to really see the effects of mental health on those around me, and also on how important it is to pay attention to yourself, because the most important thing is actually getting to know yourself and what works best for you.
Hello, everyone. I would say that I started to learn the importance of mental health when I went to college, especially. You know, mental health was never really discussed when I was in high school. I went to high school in West Virginia, and no one talked about it there. But then when I came to college, my best friend suffered from extreme depression, and she was suicidal a lot of the time. Sometimes I would worry that I would come back and she wouldn't be there. But then also, one of my other best friends moved to Washington, D.C. when I was still at UF, and he moved out to D.C. and he used to call me and say that he was feeling suicidal and that he wanted to end his life, and I didn't know how to handle it because I was all the way in Florida and he was in D.C., so I didn't know what to do. So I started to realize that, you know, mental health and mental illness is a lot more prevalent than we think. And I think that I started to realize just how important it is that we take care of our mental health and we seek treatment if we feel it's necessary. But yeah, like I said, it wasn't really until I was about 19 or 20 years old until I realized that.
Yeah, so to build on your view, I'm just starting to realize the importance of mental health. I just turned 19, and for me, I was a very outgoing girl. Well, I am still, but I've always had, like, you know, a perfect diet. When I was in high school, I was score at the top of my class. I played a lot of soccer. I was an athlete. And then I came to college and I faced some challenges that was very difficult for me to deal with. And I think it's because I've never been really under that much of stress. And because I was doing as well in my schoolwork, I wasn't performing as I was expected to be performing. And then everything I crashed. And it wasn't because I was like not eating healthy or like not taking care of my body or anything. It was literally something going on in my mind. And you can't explain it. When you have depression, when I told my mom, and she couldn't believe me. She was like, maybe you're just being too lazy. Maybe you don't want to do this, or you don't want to be involved in college or anything. When you have it, you can't explain it. It's something that you feel empty, you feel worthless, and there's a feeling of helplessness that keeps you every morning from waking up. Like, I just remember, like, for weeks, there was a semester where I couldn't wake up. I was just in bed. Like, I can't do anything. I literally feel like I'm not worthy of being here. And that's when it hit me that all these people around me were doing so many great things, you know? Social media has this impact in our lives today that makes you feel aware of everything that's going on around you and everything that's going on around the lives of others. And that, as a negative of an effect that has on some people, that really helped me to see where I was at in my life. Seeing like, well, if I'm like capable of doing so many great things, why am I in this place right now, you know? So just realizing that I could do so many great things out there and that I was not, that's when it really hit me that mental health is a priority in everyone's life.
Valentina mentioned athletics and eating well.
With myself directly, the story I was sharing today wasn't dealing with my story with myself, perhaps, but I have realized the importance between the two, especially with eating habits and sleeping habits. Starting college, I was, did really well in high school, and then I jumped into college, and I was like, I have to absolutely be in an honors college program. It's nothing less. I've been AP honors my whole life and gifted. So there was a huge wake-up call when I was pulling all-nighters, almost, bi-weekly, and well, 2 times in the same week I was pulling all-nighters, and that became a norm for me. And then I was like, I felt unstoppable. I was like, I can do this nonstop until it caught up to me. But 3 months when I started realizing that my mental health was suffering, I was, agitated. I was short with people, and then my eating habits also played into that. I didn't gain weight initially. I gained weight towards the end of the second year of college. So freshman 15 didn't get, but sophomore 15 did. Sacrifice of my schooling. I could cry in an instant. I was that on edge all the time. So it was around that point where I realized the two were correlated closely.
I know that me in particular, I know that when I start to feel stressed out, the first thing I want to do is like go outside for a walk or go for a run or go to the gym or something like that. So I know that, when I start to feel stressed out, my first instinct is to do something physical in a way to take my mind off what's stressing me out. So I know that's how I know that they're related in a way. And when I do go for that run or I do go for a swim or whatever, I always come back feeling a lot better. I feel more calm. I feel more at ease. And the thing that I was bothered about earlier just doesn't seem as bad. So I know that when I was a freshman, I took yoga with my roommate, or I did yoga with my roommate, and I always came back feeling like just so relieved about everything. And I'm not flexible at all. I'm not good at yoga, but it made me feel better because it was just getting my mind off the things that were really stressing me out in the moment. So when I start to feel stressed, I'm always like, what can I go do? And then it's usually something physical. So.
Like I said before, I was so involved in high school and I did so many things, and my body was receiving so much input, and I've always enjoyed doing sports. And obviously, we all know that when you do sports, you release all the serotonin or dopamine, and after running, then you feel great, and I love that. But also, when your mental health is not okay, then you just don't feel like running, or you don't have that motivation to go work out. So of course your body's not getting the physical need that it needs. So then it starts affecting your mental well-being, and everything starts to just deteriorate. So for sure, I believe that when you're just not treating your body because of your mental health, everything starts to connect.
Were there any non-physical things you did for your mental health?
Listening to music helped a lot. And then actually making time to sleep, no matter where it was, if it was in a chair for 15 minutes or in the couch. And we had a loft in our program in Miami. I just wherever I could get that was the best way I could possibly do. Non-physically, I could recover. I was really into exercise. That helped, but again, not physically. That was really what I focused on.
For me, I know, at least for when I was really agitated and I was kind of taking a toll on my mental health, I would start to focus on my breathing. Like when people get upset, they breathe in and out, like just to calm themselves down. I know that helps me a lot. So that's one thing I did. And then another thing is I always watch YouTube videos, like makeup gurus YouTube videos. It always took my mind off what was going on. So that was always my little escape when I would start to feel stressed or would start to have some sort of anxiety attack. I'd be like, well, let me just go over here and watch my YouTube videos and I'll feel better. But it's basically just anything that kind of focused my mind somewhere else for the moment. That was always really good for me.
I'm actually taking a class. It's called arts and medicine, I've learned a lot how people with mental health deal with it by, dancing, music, and there's actually science behind it. And I thought, wow. So I started painting. I used to paint, but now I paint a lot more, and it releases all the stress I have, makes me feel better. And also throughout this whole thing, I think it's very important that people have a strong friendship, a strong infrastructure of friends around you that understand what you're going through and support you. For me, talking to a lot of my best friends and like venting all the time, like how I feel, that helped me so much to just understand how I feel, and also hearing their advices. That was amazing. That helped me a lot.
Mindfulness, the practice of connecting with the here and now and being in the moment, is something that's gaining popularity with relieving stress. Have either of you tried that, or is that something that works for you?
Recently, after delving really into the detail about mindfulness and what it entails, I realized that a lot of the things that I did day to day, I was actually practicing mindfully. One of the practices is mindful walking, and when I'm walking, I'm paying attention to every single move my body makes. It's a little peculiar, but and I realized that that's in a way a therapeutic practice while you're walking. Another thing, another one that I got into is the breathing. That absolutely is the number one thing I probably practice when considering mindfulness. The listening was a huge cultural thing for me growing up. Listening, not waiting to speak, but really listening to what the person you're speaking to is saying was something that has been burned into me since I was a child. So that was something that every person I speak to is something that I practice. So I didn't realize that subconsciously I was practicing these techniques that I guess were keeping me as sane as I could be without really realizing it. There are other practices, but those are the ones that best fit me at the time, until now.
For me, like I said earlier, I did mindful breathing, so just kind of thinking about how I was breathing, and that always really helped me. But I think before I really knew what mindfulness was and started to practice it, I was not mindful at all. I never focused on what I was doing ever. I would just kind of like go with the flow and do whatever I needed to do. But I mean, sometimes I would walk somewhere and then I would get there and be like, how did I get here? Or I'd be driving and then I would show up and be like, how did I get here? How reckless was I driving? I don't remember this at all. So I started practicing mindfulness when I started to learn more about it. And I think that it helped me focus a lot more. So like when I started to mindfully breathe, when I start to feel overwhelmed, it calms me down, but it also helps me to focus more on what I'm doing, and then that later it just helps me focus better all around. So yeah.
Is there something as mindfulness, like mindful partying? I think that when you think of going out, a lot of us is just like, oh, let's go get drinks, like drink until we die, whatever. But not that I will ever drink, cause I'm underage. Yeah. Anyway, so but now I'm trying to go actually with my friends and spend some time and realize like actually to be in the moment and appreciate the company and be mindful of just enjoying a special moment with them. So I think it's very important to just not, like, we have a culture that pushes us, and especially in college, to drink so much that like drinking is just like the fun thing to do. But there's so many other things that we could do. You could just go out and dance, like without even like sipping that vodka, put it away. But I'm just saying, like, there's so many other ways that you can enjoy the company of your friends without, this whole thing.
Did you all find that there was a big difference from maintaining your mental health back home versus on campus? And did you utilize any of the campus resources that are available for mental health?
I feel a lot of my practices of how to deal with stress carried over into when I moved up here for college. After transferring, all of the good and I guess the bad habits that I had back home did transfer over. But I feel a lot of growth has happened through moving. Although I internalized a lot of what I dealt with back home, I kind of did the same here, but it's a little bit more refreshing when you're also living with someone who's going through the same exact thing you are, through, as far as school and stress goes. And then when you're in an environment, especially one whose population density in Gainesville is to be all students, you're kind of looking around and you realize that there's kids here who are also going through this stresses, especially students who are science majors, who have comfortable stress to my own. And did I use any? I did not use any of the campus resources. I kind of, again, without realizing it, I kind of just used the mindful practices that I had been using, kind of was susceptible to before too. So but I did not use any of the campus resources. I was aware of them. I knew people who did use them and sought help through them and did come out a lot happier than when they went in. But myself, no, I did not.
For me, it's hard to say how I treated my mental health differently at home just because I've moved so many times, so I don't really have a concrete home for myself. But my dad kind of was the type of person that was like mental health homosality. So mental health was never really talked about within my family sphere, even though my mom was diagnosed bipolar when I was 16, I think. And I never really understood why she acted the way she did or anything like that. But it was never really talked about. Like, she would just start acting a certain way and I wouldn't understand it, and I would sit in my room and cry, but it was never really talked about. So I never really focused on my mental health at all. But then when I came to college, I didn't really have a lot of friends when I came to college, so a lot of the time I felt kind of lonely, and I think that that sometimes led me to be, a lot more down than I normally am. But I did use campus resources. I went to the Counseling and Wellness Center, and I was in group therapy for a semester, and I actually really enjoyed it. The people that were in my group therapy session were great, and I learned a lot about myself through it, which I think is the whole purpose of it. But I did use campus resources.
Yeah, okay. So, back home we have a lot of beaches and stuff, so I'll always go to the beach and enjoy like a day, so it's a lot better because it's like more like going home is more of a vacation for me, so it's like I'm super relaxed, everything's a lot better, and I have a lot of good friends back home, so that's important to me. But when I come here, I guess definitely I'm under a lot more stress, especially with like selecting your classes and like being on track, and especially when you're pre-med. I took all this chemistry classes and I was not doing good, so not being able to do great in all those science classes really hit me, and I think that also helped increase how bad I was feeling about myself, because there's a lot of expectations back home for me, and I was just not doing how I wanted to do, and so that really put me like, I think my depression comes in waves where I'm like, oh, life is great, and then it's like, oh my god, I don't want to like do anything, and it's horrible. Yeah, I use some campus resources. My mom, I think she knows a counselor here. I think her name is Jamie, and she's great. So like I said, I love venting to people, and she really helped me a lot.
Could you tell us a little bit more about your journeys and how it helped you to grow as a person, going through that and pretty much overcoming
So shortly before moving to Gainesville, my mother retired. She's very successful. She worked in the medical field. She was a pediatric intensive care nurse educator, and clinical educator for Jackson Memorial Hospital. All she wanted to do was spend her time with us. Growing up, her whole focus was us. It was never, also, very Greek of my mom to be all about her children. So all she wanted to do was just spend time at home with all her kids. And my brother moved to Jacksonville with the Navy, and my other brother was still at home when at FIU, and I decided to move to Gainesville. And it was the same summer that my mom retired, and she was devastated. She was like, oh my God, now that I'm home all the time, you're leaving. So it was a little hard to move away, but I'm kind of like I can flock and then come back. I don't have a problem coming back and forth. My mom's the type to talk to us every single day, so I always have a text or a phone call with my mom every single day, at least 2 times a day. And come the first spring semester year, so spring 2016, I was trying to get in contact with my mom. I hadn't spoken to her in a few days, which is very unlike her, and I tried calling her, and she would either ignore my phone call or just let it run to the voicemail. And she would text me almost immediately and be like, can't talk, doing something, or, and she's avoiding me. And about a week went by, which is, I guess, too long before I realized there was an issue. And my brother called me, and he's like, Mom's not doing well. She's been in the house. She's not leaving. She's not getting off the couch. She's just exhibiting signs of almost being as a recluse. She was hysterical upon leaving the house. She couldn't be alone. My brother didn't leave the house for a solid month because she couldn't stand the idea of her being being alone in the home. And my father is away on business. He was in South Carolina, so he didn't know about what was going on. But so she was home, and my brother told me that he's been home for a solid month. He can't leave the house. My mom was doing really poorly, and immediately I sprung into action. I said, okay, I'll come down this weekend. So I packed all my stuff up. It was Friday morning, and I drove down. And I come home, and she was just like, she's almost like a shell of who she used to be. It was very, very, it was probably one of the most heartbreaking things I've ever seen in my entire life. Especially a woman who is to the caliber that she is. She's of course, I'm a little biased, but I mean, even at face value, she's just a different definition of what a woman should be. And when she was sitting on the couch and she's just looking at me as if she was seeing a stranger. That's almost what it was like. And myself looking at her and seeing the same. And she was not herself at all. She was looking around as if she was in a strange place. She wasn't showing like the affection. She's a very affectionate woman as well. She wasn't showing that at all either with me. And I would force her to leave the house, and all she would do was just like, let's go get a coffee, and then we'll sit at Starbucks, and she'd be sitting down, and she'd be really, really still in her place, and she's just like, breathing. And then also she had dropped at least 40 pounds when I saw her. So that was another thing. I used my mom being a little bit more, on the bigger side, so she's, so helping her was always very nice. And then I come home and I saw her like that, and it was just, it was awful. And we'd be sitting, we couldn't be outside longer than maybe 15, 20 minutes before she was like, I have to go home. Like, I can't be here. And she would have to drive because she'd have to have control of the car. And, she wouldn't let me drive her anywhere. And we used to come home and she'd just start hysterically crying. Or she'd look around her surroundings and it was as if she didn't know where she was. And she ended up seeking help. I had to leave that weekend. My brother had to, he spent a few days on his own. He came back and I was like, I'm sorry, I have to go. And then she started seeing someone, and we were meeting up in Tampa for my cousin's wedding. It was some event, I really could not tell you. And we were all, all of us were coming from different parts of Florida, and we all meet at the hotel, and my mom's like, I'm outside waiting for you guys, where are you? My brother and I ended up getting at the same time. And my brother in front of the hotel, where are you? And she's like, I'm here as well. And we turn around, and she turns around, and from behind, I didn't recognize her from who she was until she turned around and I saw her face. And she was even thinner than when she was before. And my brother just started bawling his eyes out, crying. And I've never seen my brother cry. I've seen my brother cry like maybe 2 times in my entire life. And then like I'm crying, and she's crying, and we're all crying. And outside this, this hotel off the highway, and it's just really depressing. And, you know, we got to the hotel room and she seemed to have, seemed to be doing better than when I saw her before. She's still a little skittish, but she seemed to, to have improved. And I saw her go into her purse and reach for something. And she was like kind of being a little more hidden with it, and she was taking a pill. And immediately all my red flags went off. I looked at her and go, what is that? I was really, really upset with her. She looked at me and she's like, are you upset with me? And I was like, why are you taking that? Because, and she ended up having, she was prescribed an antidepressant to help her getting through the depression that she fell under. And my understanding of seeking help through medication was for me, it was the absolute last option. I never supported it. I was always like, there's a way you can get through this, and not all cases is it chemical. I had other experiences in my family, people took antidepressants and it changed who they were. I had people who, gained weight, lost weight through it. People became dependent on them for happiness. And I thought, she's better than that. She's totally superior to taking medication. She's a strong woman in that. And I was a little insensitive towards that whole idea. So then when she sought help through and then was ultimately dealing with it through the antidepressants, I realized that this is not something that I should be so critical of. Especially when she started hysterically crying when she saw me catch her taking the pill. My other brother was really upset with her too. And I explained to her after why I felt that way, but I was like, this is helping you, this is how you need to get your help. I was like, obviously I'm going to support you. And now she's doing a lot better, she's gained weight again. But ultimately that was probably the hardest part, was seeing someone else go through it. But ultimately it led me to see the signs of possibly reaching that point within myself. Almost to where now I'm extremely conscious of that. If I reach a limit that again, not to that caliber of maybe going to take medication, but going to seek help in someone, in a professional, and see where I stand with myself, because she was never someone to spend time on herself. So she's relearning who she is as a 53-year-old woman, because her whole life is dedicated to her career and her kids, and even my father. And at this point in time, now she's taking time to go shopping for herself, and now she's, we got a dog, so she has time to spend with the dog, and it was a really, really sad, but really happy, a really, really nice thing to see my mom rediscover who she is as her own person in her 50s. And but now she's doing better. And so ultimately, it opened me up to being more sensitive about others going through this issue. Also being more sensitive about people seeking help through medication, because there are so many options. Mindfulness is just one, but there are so many options that fit different people, and that's the important thing to keep in mind when discussing the topic of mental health and seeking mental help. And yeah.
Okay, well, my story's a little bit different. As Patrice said, I suffer from a rare anxiety disorder called agoraphobia, and it's something that I've had ever since I was a kid, and I knew that I was always different because my parents would take me to the museum or they would take me to the beach or something, and I couldn't stand being there. I would start to have a panic attack and I would have to leave the space, or, it was like as soon as I hit the beach, like I would just be like, I have to leave as soon as I would hit the beach. And basically what agoraphobia is, in broad terms, is a fear of a situation that you can't escape, but there's a separate facet of agoraphobia is being fearful of wide open spaces. So like, for example, the beach is just a wide open space, there's nothing around you. So for me, I couldn't be in the swamp because it's a large space. I couldn't be in the O'Connell Center because it's a large space. Some of the lecture halls here on campus, I have a class actually this semester, Rock and Roll in American Society, and it's in this huge lecture hall in the new physics building. I remember the first day I walked into the class, I was like, oh no. So the only way I can remedy that is if I sit in the very, very, very back row. So the room doesn't seem as on top of me. I'm kind of on the outside edge. But yeah, it was it was even prevalent when I was a kid. Normally agoraphobia doesn't really come up in people until they're a little bit older, but ever since I was a kid, my parents would take me to museums, and the ceiling would be really tall in the building, and I would start to cry, and I would have to leave, and I kind of thought it was just, I was a kid, I never really thought much of it. But then when I got older, people would be like, oh, let's go to the beach, because I lived in Clearwater for a little bit, and they'd be like, oh, let's go to the beach, and I'm like, can we go somewhere else? I don't really want to go to the beach. And I didn't want to have to tell them, like, I'm scared to go to the beach because it kind of makes me seem like I'm lame or something. And, they would just kind of be like, well, then don't come. And I'd be like, oh, okay, I guess I won't come. But it was, I always felt sometimes left out and, like, people didn't understand me. It was really hard for me to be like, well, I can't go because I have this condition. And most of the time, even if I would say that, they'd be like, oh, that's not a real thing. That's not real. You're not depressed. You're not, whatever. That's not a real thing. But, so when I was growing up, I never felt like anyone understood me. But the disorder that I have doesn't affect me all the time. Obviously, like, if I'm sitting in this room, it doesn't affect me. But if I was sitting out in the field, I would have to leave. But I think that the way I handle it is I kind of just, if I'm in the situation, a lot of it is in my head, so I have to talk myself down out of it, and I'm just like, you're okay, like nothing's gonna hurt you here, because I'm standing in an open field and nothing is going to hurt me, unless some weird circumstance happens and there's, I don't know, a wolf in the field, I don't know, but like nothing's going to hurt me. So I kind of just have to talk myself out of it, and it's almost a form of exposure therapy, so I kind of have to just stay there and talk myself down out of it, which is really hard. My hands get sweaty and I start to shake really bad, and everyone's like, what is wrong with her? She's sitting in class like shaking. But I think that, as I've had, it got worse throughout time, because if you don't deal with agoraphobia, it starts to get worse as you get older. So I think once I got to college, it was really bad, to the point where, like I said, I couldn't sit in some lecture halls, and it was never that bad before. But I think the way I deal with it, I just started to kind of, like I said, expose myself and talk myself down out of how I was feeling, because I just had to say to myself, like, nothing in here is going to hurt you right now, because it was just a fear of, I don't know, it was just a dreadful fear of, I don't even know what. But I never got actual, like, therapy for agoraphobia, like actual professional help, but I kind of been taking it on myself. But I'm hoping that that everything will be okay, because I'm actually graduating in the O'Connell Center in April, and I really want to be able to sit through my graduation. So, but one thing that this has taught me is that you don't really know what someone is going through. Like, some people look at me sitting in the back of the classroom, like by myself, and they think I'm some weirdo loner or something like that. But it's like you never really know what someone's going through. So I think it's made me a lot more, empathetic to other people. So yeah.
Alright, so I'm just gonna tell you a little bit about myself. I grew up my whole life in Colombia, South American other country, and when I was there, I was so happy all the time. It was amazing, because mainly our culture is based on like affection. It's more like a community kind of society. So everything is based on family, and like everyone support each other. We talk a lot. There's a lot of communication between people, strangers, and you're just very affectionate. And I think that coming from that, where like I saw this culture that's so colorful and like brings so much life to me and means so much, just coming from that, and like from there to here, where I was just like, oh my God, I came to this huge high school. First of all, I came from a very small private school, and I came here to a public school, and it was huge. I just didn't know anyone. I could barely talk English. I was like, no habla, like literally, like I was just like, oh my God, this is not gonna work out. I'll freak out in class. I was like the shyest girl you've ever seen. And I think that if somebody saw me from the outside, they'll be like, oh my God, that girl, that poor girl, that was like the worst time of her life. And now that I've come back to where I am, I think that this is the most challenging part of my life. I mean, I came from that, like accomplishing all these things, and I was pushing myself, and I did so great in high school, even though I came from literally another country. And then here, just like I was so exceptional in high school, and then coming here and being like average and like all these things, and like okay, well she's good, but she's not that great, and she's not that special anymore, whatever. But it's not even that I was like, all right, well there's something really like wrong going on, because since high school I knew that something was up. I was just like, when I play soccer, I felt so excited, so happy, and I came from being that excited to college where I was just very empty. Like you just feel super empty all day. Like, what is the meaning of life? Like, why am I here? Like, worthless? Am I worthless? I started wondering all these things, and I think it's because I've built up so many emotions that I carry from high school, where I was like, all right, well, who am I? Like, I started thinking like, oh, like, do I like girls? Do I not like girls? Like, what's going on? I was very confused in high school. I brought all these things to college, were just like, just accumulated, and I sort of crashed throughout freshman year. And the signs of how my depression came was like, instead of like losing a little weight, I gained a lot of weight, and I was like doing all these things, but I just slowly stopped trying in like my academic work and other things, and I wasn't realizing it. I was like, okay, it's whatever, I'll do it later, or I'll just, until it came to a point where I just didn't care anymore. I was like, okay, well, I don't care, nobody cares about me. And it wasn't because nobody cared, it's because in my mind, that's how I felt. And I think it's important when you have depression to realize that you have it. Because when I went through this whole thing, I was just like, oh, maybe this is normal. Maybe this is like what every college student experiences. But it wasn't. I was really not doing great, and there wasn't anyone that also saw the signs that I was showing that could really tell me like, oh, you have depression. So I just kept doing all these things, and basically it came to a point where I almost ruined my career. Like my GPA has never been this low. I come to a point where I was almost suicidal, and it's like really bad. So I think that coming to terms with myself and letting other people know, like, hey, I'm going through this, and like, obviously, I told my best friend, I was like, oh my God, like this is happening, and we both cried, and for some people it was really, I think for me it was like really embarrassing telling her like, oh, like I feel ashamed of how I feel towards other people. I feel ashamed of like these feelings that I have. And she's like, it's okay, and like the best thing is to have like acceptance from others. So that really changed my whole perspective of this whole thing, and realizing that I have people that love me and that support me, and also starting to the small little things, like making a list of everything that I have to accomplish, and actually following the list. That motivates me, and that also finding my purpose. Because I think that after high school, I lost a lot of what I wanted to do with myself. I just didn't know what I wanted to do, where I wanted to go, and now setting a goal on being okay. No, now I have it. Now I'm gonna do this. Now I'm gonna stop, and at least I'm gonna get off of bed, and at least I'm gonna do homework. I'm gonna do a quiz. I'm gonna go out, talk to people, anything that will keep you from just being in bed and feeling sorry for yourself. That really that helped me a lot. So. help me understand what other people might be going through. I mean, if I barely have like a moderate to severe depression, I can't even imagine like extreme cases of depression where the person literally feels just worthless. And like to me, I sometimes feel like that, but I realize that that's not true. That that's just like a perception that my mind is playing in my head. So yeah, I would say that.
If you could go back in time, what is it that you would want your former self to know that you know now?
Specifically to this, I would tell my former self to be more open. Quite honestly, that's what I lacked, which is pretty opposite to what I'm always portraying. I usually believe I'm pretty open, but I didn't realize how narrow-minded I was when it came to this particular topic. I think I would have told myself, 18-year-old me, who was completely different from who I am right now. Leaving high school, I didn't have any idea what was going on in reality. I would definitely tell myself to be more open to the fact that this is a possibility, that I myself could travel down this road, and that this road that's being traveled is so commonly done, so commonly traveled by those who are around me, and ultimately would tell myself to be more empathetic of the fact that, to practice empathy and be more empathetic towards others.
I would probably have to give a similar answer, and I think, you know, like I said earlier, that my dad was always really, kind of had a strange view about mental health, and he would always say, oh, it's all in your head, you can control how you feel, X, Y, and Z, and then I guess for a while when I was growing up, I felt the same way just because he was kind of the one teaching me that, and I think it never really hit me, like I said, until college, how important mental health is to all of us. And I don't know, I wish I could take back certain things I said to people, you know, when I was younger about, you know, they would open up to me about mental health, and I was like, oh, it's not a big deal, or oh, that's not real. So again, you know, I wish I was more open about, you know, these things. And like, even though I was living with a mental illness this whole time, but I never really thought anything of it. But I wish I could go back in time and just be more open to people and be more accepting and empathetic, because that really does make a huge difference for people. You know, when I go through my little anxiety attacks and people aren't open and empathetic to me, it makes me feel obviously even worse that they don't believe me or that they're not there for me. So I wish I could go back in time and, you know, give those people these positive feelings that, you know, you are a human being, and you know you are dealing with these things, but you're a strong person. So I wish I could go back and do those things.
I think for me it will be that to never be afraid of failure. I think I was always fearing I would fail, and that stopped me from doing all the things that I should have done, that I should have pursued, and I just thought that I wasn't good enough, or that I wasn't worth of doing those things. And I think it's very important for us to realize that we need to try, but if we fail, it's okay. We'll rise back.
The Campaign to Change Direction, a national campaign that seeks to change the culture of mental health in America, explains that there are 5 signs of emotional suffering. Those 5 signs are personality change, agitation, withdrawal, poor self-care, and hopelessness. If anyone in the room has seen any of those signs in maybe a loved one or a friend or a peer, what advice would you give to them?
One thing to take in mind when considering these 5 signs of emotional suffering is that these things are going to be experienced, may possibly be experienced in daily life. Agitation, I mean, these terms themselves are a little more heavy than, you know, in context. But when really understanding them, you see that, you know, you may have experienced these things on a normal daily basis. I mean, agitation can come pretty easily, to myself in particular, I believe. And the important thing to do is you see someone going through something, then the whole driving force of this campaign is just opening the conversation, making them feel like it's okay to speak about it, because ultimately it is okay to talk about it. And the only thing that's stopping that is that communication between you and the person who's seeing this trouble, and from opening up about it. So creating that channel and allowing that safe space for this person to open up, and this, I know, and face value sounds cliche, but it really is something that once you see it in person, when you actually see the opportunity to open up, which you will, and I'm sure you guys have before, I'm not discounting that whatsoever. That's really the best thing you can do to even start it out. It's just to open that conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with George, because like I said, there were times when friends would open up to me when I was younger, and I would, you know, kind of just whatever, or that's not real. But, you know, when you reach out to someone and you notice that they're exhibiting these sorts of signs, reaching out to them, it shows them that you care about them as a person. And, you know, when my friend was going through her depression, when I lived with her in the dorms, you know, she was exhibiting all of these signs, but I had absolutely no clue what to do. Like, absolutely no idea. And sometimes you're going to experience that, you know, someone is going to be exhibiting these signs, and you're not going to know what to do. But sometimes just talking to them and being like, how can I help you? Or just talk to me about what you're experiencing can help them so much. And you don't have to be their therapist. You don't have to be, you know, whatever it may be, but just being there and saying like, hey, you're important to me, and I want to know how you're feeling, and I want to know how I can help, can really make a difference.
Also, being all the way through this whole thing, like with them, supporting them, and truly believing that they're going through a real thing, and just not like, oh, it's all in your head. It's very important to acknowledge that it's not their fault, and it's all going to be okay.
And just as a general FYI, if there's someone you're not close to who is going through this on campus, you all can report it anonymously to youmatter.ufl.edu. They'll actually reach out to the student to see if they're okay or if they need anything, and if you're not comfortable speaking to them directly, that's a way to make sure someone checks in on that person, even if you don't feel comfortable to do so yourself. So always keep that in the back of your mind. There's no charge to it. No one's going to hassle you or anything like that. So it's definitely a great resource we're lucky enough to have here at UF. At this time, we do want to give you all the opportunity to ask any questions you may have for any of our panelists. Does that mean they were super thorough? Okay.
So I actually like wrote some stuff down when you guys were talking. So George, you said something about like your mom taking medication, and I actually take medication. I recently got diagnosed with bipolar type 2, which is just pretty much not as extreme as type 1. It's more like highs and lows like this. So when you were growing up, was it just like, was medication seen as like you don't need medication, or why were you and your brother so like, I guess like mad at your mom for taking medication?
I feel there are several factors. A huge factor, I believe, is the whole cultural aspect, which I'm sure anyone who's from an addiction, the ethnic background knows that certain things are viewed as taboo. Mental health is one of those things that were never discussed. You know, my mother being a nurse, with her, obviously, it was a lot more of an open thing. But all of my father's, you know, typical, Greek European men, immigrant, you know, things like that, especially between males, were never spoken of. I didn't follow that per se, but I obviously felt susceptible to it indirectly. With me directly, it was more my lack of exposure to people who needed to seek help through medication, on top of the fact that to my fault, held my mother to a different, on a pedestal. You know, I saw her again as this all-around superwoman, super being, you know, pride factor. So I viewed it as that because I viewed seeing help as, you know, a sign of weakness, which it is not. It's almost very noble, and I think it is admirable for anyone to even go and see that in themselves and go and take that step. So she could have very easily denied the help, and she wouldn't be in the place she is in right now, which I believe is, you know, 180 degrees compared to where she was before. So it was an opening, it was an eye-opener to the three of us, because I'm the youngest of three boys, and to the three of us experiencing firsthand, especially my second eldest brother, who was at home with him the whole time, that, again, the different routes people can take in seeking help for their, you know, mental health help and things of that sort.
Are there any other questions? Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of our discussion. I want to thank the Bateman team for planning this event, the Rights Union for allowing us to use this lovely space, and most of all, our panelists who I think were very open and honest and transparent with us. Can we get a round of applause for them? Hopefully you all have gathered some information you didn't have when you walked in the door. Also note that in the back of the room we have additional pamphlets as well as a prize raffle that you all can enter for participating with us this evening. For more information, you each can visit Mind the Gap and upcoming events at whatsthegap.com. Thank you and have an awesome evening. I'm sure that we all are now more aware of some resources that have clear minds, especially going into spring break. So you all have a